goes for goal and finishes off the PSG victory.
Nuno Mendes est lancé, Nuno Mendes va vite, Nuno Mendes passe devant trois Dardo, le tir, oh il est beau celui-là, le but de Nuno Mendes.
You know the football, it is what it is.
Le premier but de Ronald Colomboigny avec le Paris Saint-Germain, quelle joie.
Hello and welcome to PSG Review, the show about to enter the summer of seemingly infinite possibilities, while simultaneously on a lookout for another, perhaps slightly lesser overhaul than 1 year ago, but one nonetheless. The rumors are heating up and it's quite difficult to know who and what to believe in. The business model of press isn't to be right every time, but to keep people talking and clicking and occasionally be on the money. One way of winning a bet, of course, is betting on for and against everything. Cover all the bases, and that's the media environment we live in. Everyone wants to highlight the times they were right as evidence of reliability of their sources and quality of their reporting. The times that they were wrong, we are asked to forget. And of course, the way that this conversation works is that you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. The press and the influencers are well connected with the players and agents, but it's not always in the interest of the players or the agents for the actual truth to come out, but rather a version of it that suits their business interests. I say all that as a disclaimer because we know what the summer means in football. Take a deep breath. Count from 10 backwards to 0. Close your eyes. Think of happy thoughts. We are about to dive into the deep end of gossip, make-believe, and occasional true story, but in the end we will have all the answers in the end when the window closes. Then we will know which players will wear our shirt for the next campaign. Right now, the window isn't even open yet, but I'm just saying this to brace yourself for whatever it will bring. My name is Mikko. Thanks for listening to PSG Review. Right now, we aren't yet leaning too heavily to the summer since there's still other matters to solve on the agenda as it is for this season. One more match and we will talk about it, and Coupe de France in general, the importance of it to me. I do like it, that's true, but of course also to the club itself, PSG. What happened against Metz, we'll have a look at that as Ligue 1 came to its end for another season last night as I'm recording this on Monday. Who were there and who weren't and why, and in the end we also wrap up the season for our women's team. They already ended their campaign on the weekend, well, Friday night to be precise. Find and follow the show, talk to me online at PSG Review Pod on Twitter and then at PSG Review on Instagram and TikTok. Metz welcomed our Parisians on Sunday night. It's last night as I record this on Monday, and the last round of Ligue 1, that's 34th of the campaign, as all the teams were playing at the same time as it is traditional. Some rotation again for PSG. Some players had been given an extra surprise holiday and they were already in Cannes. Not with the team, and these players were Marquinhos, Vitinha, Ousmane Dembele, Donnarumma, wasn't also there, Fabian Ruiz and Kylian Mbappé. Note, not all of them were in Cannes, certainly not all of them were seen there, but Kylian Mbappé and Ousmane Dembele certainly were there, and it's perfectly fine for me that these guys are getting a little bit of a downtime if that is what is seen as the best thing to do. They have played an awful lot, and even the summer to come they are going to be playing more, so as we have this important Coupe de France final on the next weekend, if rest is what is needed, then good to have some rest. And more of that Coupe de France final in a bit because we need to be very sharp there. I will, however, have to say that we have been in the eye of the storm every single time that Kylian Mbappé has been resting this spring. If he has ever been subbed off or if he has even been on the bench, every single time there's been a big press furor. Afterwards, the reports were suggesting also that he would have found that bit of rest that he had during the season, during the busy time of the year, very unbalancing, even negatively impacting his performances. Now, there's a chance that report is inaccurate or certainly exaggerated, but it's a bit much that we have lived through that, and now that he has stopped effectively playing football for us since his big exit party at Park, he's not too interested to anybody. Nobody cares whether he's playing or not. All of a sudden, his absence is of no interest to anyone, including himself, as he's enjoying life elsewhere in more comfortable environments. The rules of engagement, they have changed, and they have changed dramatically. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Not only that anyway, and we will see if he's still motivated to play the Coupe de France final. Does Luis Enrique feel that his presence will strengthen the squad on the last match of the campaign when there's an actual, major trophy on the line? It's not a very good look, I have to be honest with you. Basically, the last home match was the last visible outing in Ligue 1. Kylian Mbappé was centering it all around himself. Of course, not just him, but he was there in the mix, which I understand because it was a kind of culmination of 7 years and all of that stuff. Of course, it was happening in a time when there were big conversations happening around his form and around his commitment to the remainder of his contract. But now that the media focus is no longer on him, all of a sudden, after that one last big home match, he's sort of maxing and relaxing in the south of France. Perhaps one can say, what does it matter anymore? But how things are ended does matter, and the final on the weekend is actually quite a big thing, and how that goes will be quite telling. And of course, when you're that good as he is, perhaps you will just come and play well and score a few goals and lift the trophy and it's all smiles. But the saying is, it exists, it goes, the first impressions last. That's true, but I also think that in football equally, the last impressions last. The memories can really be tarnished in the final stretch, as they undoubtedly already have been when it comes to these other players. What is their situation? Genuine need for rest, or is there more to it with them also? Daniel Riolo of RMC, who is always having these strong views, is best known for his dislike of Marco Verratti, and this season also Luis Enrique, and he has never really ran out of excuses for Kylian Mbappé and his family yet, so he's quite a divisive figure, I'll give you that. But nevertheless, I was told my friend who listens to his show that he has now suggested that Ousmane Dembele would have also upset Luis Enrique. It certainly is true that he hasn't featured heavily on our squad since the very flat performance against Dortmund. It certainly was a huge contrast to his brilliant 2 matches against his other former team, Barcelona. I don't know what the reality is, but inevitably the future will give us some answers when we see how things will move on from here on in. We are already losing the top scorer of Ligue 1 this season, so why not lose the top assist provider as well? Well, I'm being facetious here, of course, but also surprisingly unbothered by all this, because when the direction is right, it feels that the direction is right, then there are far fewer worries in how to get there. It seems possible. It seems like if we are making the right types of decisions, then the decisions that we are going to make, or the leaders of the club, the directors and so on, they will make good decisions, good choices for the club in a long run. The match itself against Metz wasn't massively exciting, if I'm being entirely honest. We might have had one of the less exciting matches of this last round, where a lot was happening around France, changing seemingly all the time everywhere. But with a healthy rotation, we had Navas in goal, most probably playing his last ever match, not just in our shirt, but most probably in Europe, although I don't know where he's going to go. It feels like the type of contract he might be after isn't readily available on this continent, although I really don't know. It's just speculation. Maybe I could see him in MLS, maybe that's a guess. Well, he played well, kept a clean sheet, and I have talked about him before quite a few times, of course, and I have a world of respect and appreciation for his service for all these years for our club. Nordi Mukiele was also playing. He was playing very well, aggressive in attack, and in defense he really put his body on the line, considering that he is one of those players who aren't in the coach's good books either, who seem quite likely, certainly a potential one to be on his way moving to other club this summer. He certainly put in the sacrifice, all things considered. Perhaps he was auditioning for his next job, I don't know. But either way, I really liked what he did in this match. And of course, if you have been listening to this show before many times, I have said I don't have any problems. Nordi Mukiele, I quite like him as a player. But of course, there's also rumors that he's had some extra sportif issues that outside of football, that he's living a lifestyle in Paris that wouldn't necessarily best please Lucho Enrique. Be that as it may, I don't know. These are rumors. Maybe I shouldn't validate them, but nevertheless, that is what's being talked about. And Manuel Ugarte was also in the mix. His name has also been mentioned with potential departures, not to the same extent, but to some extent. A good match by him. Carlos Soler, possibly also with his next big kick in mind, played well and scored a really brilliant goal from far outside of the box. He later admitted that he was trying to actually cross the ball to in front of the goal, but it ended up going in. I think he could have just let it be. Let us celebrate his goulash without taking anything away from it. But it was certainly a nice one. Lee Kang-in was also good. He got a goal. And another noteworthy observation is that Gonzalo Ramos played well, in my opinion, and he was constantly dangerous. But somehow he didn't manage to get a goal, which of course is his primary task. Could have been a little bit more clinical, but in the big picture, that didn't really matter. Also, a good outing from the kids. Seni Mauyulu started the match, and later on Ethan Pape as well as Joram Saag also were introduced. The word on the street is that Seni Mauyulu will sign his first contract any day now, first proper contract, or that it will be announced soon anyways. It was an okay match, obviously nothing that we will remember years from now as an evening. Perhaps some of this stuff that is happening around the club can be a talking point for some time, especially now that the speculation that I mentioned by Daniel Riolo have come up. Not so much with Mbappe and his apparent lack of interest in our club, although it is going to be a big talking point if he's not going to be playing in the final. That would be a big choice to sort of like take away that last big match. But you know, the coach will do what he must. While the player seems already quite ready to change his shirt into another color. But Dembele, if there's something there in these rumors, in the speculation, that of course will create an interesting summer for the club. A little bit of Hollywood drama just when we thought we were getting to the other side of it all. Here's the spoiler alert. We haven't. There will always be something that will be talked about. The vacuum will fill itself with PSG. The business model of French sports journalism needs a scandal or two from us at all times. The impact of these events will become clear later, that's true, but the league season has now been finished. In the end, we won the league with a 9-point margin to the runner-up Monaco, 76 points total from 34 matches, that is 2.2 points per match, 22 wins, 10 draws, and in the end, 2 defeats. The record that PSG achieved with this result, of course, combined with the entire season, is that there have been no away defeats in Ligue 1 for us, and that's never been done by anybody ever before. It's pretty good, but overall analysis of the success or failure of the campaign requires one more match to be played. That match is next weekend on Saturday, 25th of May in Lille, the very last match of the campaign, and that is Coupe de France final. It says something about the season that no matter how well we would have done, no matter how well we would have played, we could have only had one more match this season. We only missed one solitary match, one round of football, and that of course is the Champions League final. So while in future we will undoubtedly think to what extent this was a missed opportunity to not get into that final, we will also, I trust at least, understand how good the season has been, all things considered. A total overhaul of the squad and its management in terms of the coaching staff. It's not nothing, but the last match is important. To me at least it is, because Coupe de France is one of my favorite football competitions. First of all, it is our competition, and it has been our competition long before this current era and ownership. In 96, when we won the Cup Winners' Cup. Why? Because we had won the National Cup. Coupe de France. And Coupe de France is, in comparison to other cups in other countries, first of all, it's absolutely huge. The amount of clubs that participate is enormous compared to all the other ones. But it also is a competition where anything can happen, and often does. It's every year full of surprises, and the lower level teams tend to do pretty well. There's always something quite exciting there. Every season, someone from some other level is having a great run. I mean, this season, for instance, Valenciennes, who finished as the very bottom team of Ligue 2 with 12 points gap to the second last team. In Coupe de France, they made a good run to the semi-finals. To be honest with you, our opponents in the final, Olympique Lyonnais, have also had reasonably good spring, actually very good to be honest with you, but they must have been in or near the relegation zone when this Coupe de France campaign started for them. It is its own entity, and that's perhaps why PSG was doing well in it long before we had our current dominance in the league. And it has not been sitting well with me at all that we haven't won Coupe de France in 2 seasons. That means that the last time we lifted the trophy was just over 3 years ago on 19th of May in 2021. That's 2 coaches ago. Back then we played against Monaco and Mauro Icardi scored the winner. In our starting lineup we had Alessandro Florenzi, Thilo Kehrer and Abdou Diallo that day. Danilo was still playing as a midfielder and Angel Di Maria was still 1 full year from leaving PSG. That's how long time ago it was. I know 3 years isn't long for many clubs. It isn't as long, but in Paris things move so fast. Let's just say that Lionel Messi and Sergio Ramos have won almost everything you can in football. Champions League, World Cups, Euros, Copa America and so on and so forth. Neither one of them, with 2 attempts, have ever won Coupe de France. That's not in their resume. It's unlikely to result with sleepless nights in either household. I'm not suggesting that it would tarnish their credibility when discussing the legends of this game, but it does bother me that we have squandered this possibility for 2 years in a row because it is perhaps a sign of a bad attitude or skewed priorities more often than the quality of the squad, certainly on paper. Next week, we have the opportunity to end the dry spell, and I can speak for anybody else but myself. I think the result of the final will determine how I view this campaign. This season, if we win, then we have a domestic double and a good solid Champions League run, even if it could have been better, but semi-finals isn't anything to spit at. But alternatively, if we lose, then the focus is moved more towards these missed opportunities. To me, this is a surprisingly significant match, and I hope to see all of our players take it as such. Every last one of them, because OL has a positive wind behind them. Alexandre Lacazette might feel like he hasn't said his last word, so if we are not taking this very seriously, they undoubtedly will. Of course, we played against them in the league quite recently, 1 month ago, pretty much to the date, and it was quite an easy win for us. But I would not take this match lightly, the one that is coming. There's an entire trophy on the line, and Lyon will want to win it. So now the question is, to what extent do our players want to win that? And to what extent will the politics of it all be mixed with the actual final result and performance on that day? PSG women wrapped up the season in the DR final. It was a new system with the top 4 of the regular season playing playoff matches. Basically, this gave us a chance to get the championship trophy, even if with the old traditional league table system, it would have escaped us a while back already, really. Our team was defeated due to their own mistakes, which now is casting a brighter and brighter spotlight on the acute issues which we have struggled with for quite a while now. One of those has been the indifference by the club. I think that's the central one. The women's team is performing pretty well year in and year out. They're not the best in Europe, but somehow we are always in that conversation of the handful of the best teams. They have been Champions League finals. There's been solid campaigns, but we keep on losing our best players, some of them. And especially we lose them to Lyon, which is losing them directly to our biggest domestic rivals. It's not them going to Chelsea or Arsenal, which, few of them have gone. Doesn't really bother me. And it's not if they're going to Barcelona or teams like that. Doesn't really bother me so much, but it is for them crossing the line and reinforcing the dominance of the already dominant domestic direct rival. That's the issue. Now, I don't like OL in women's football at all. I don't particularly care for them in men's football, but in women's football, I really don't care about them, and I really actually have a big problem with them, and they certainly irritate me to no end with their entitlement and dark football arts. But the investment has been made, and of course, the moment QSI and Arctus are owners, the moment they decide to care, we could easily build a project that is unrivaled in Europe. They could do it any moment. They could do it this summer if that's what they choose to do. And I have no doubt about that. A positive sign perhaps to that end, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, I don't know, but a positive sign nevertheless is that during these playoff matches, both at Parc des Princes and Parc OL, there was a certain familiar face at the stands. That was Nasser Al-Khelaifi. Now, I'm not saying that it has never happened before, but I can't really remember a time when he was once in attendance, certainly not 2 times in a row. It has really been an afterthought, this team. So who knows, this could be a positive turning point for him to witness us being defeated next to the grin of Jean-Michel Aulas, who of course is already the ousted Lyon president. But this is his project to a very large extent, so maybe this experience could result with some level of seriousness around our women's team. I'm not saying that things there aren't positive at all, just that in comparison to our men's team, even if you adjust it to the different sort of business models and the amount of money that is moving in these 2 different things, it hasn't had the same focus. It hasn't been given the same chance also. But the football, while not the best, it's been really rather good. It hasn't been that bad. This has definitely been a good season, I think. It's finished now. The results are Coupe de France victory. That's an important competition to win. Champions League semi-final exit against Lyon, and the league runner-up being defeated by the same aforementioned Lyon. The bane of our existence, but also the team that we have to play so often. So they sort of hold our feet to the fire in a positive way. Without their ambitions, this team could have allowed to be even less ambitious as it has been. So it's a good competition, and it hurts me to say this because I really can't stand them and their antics, but I will say also another thing that hurts to say, perhaps even more so. I would have been happy to have the trophy, to beat Lyon in the final. Absolutely, I would have been very happy about it. It would have been glorious, and I get why this playoff system was introduced, because nature of this league, Dion, is that there rarely is much of anything for anyone to play around Easter. It's usually kind of like done and dusted, sorted. Pretty much the order of who gets where is going to be decided quite early on. But Lyon finished the season 9 points ahead of us. It would have been a raw deal for them not to be crowned champions, to be honest with you. Of course, many sports have playoffs, just feels very unusual to have them in European League football. And we're going to see what they're going to do next year. Are they going to continue with the same thing? Was this just a one-season trial, or if they're going to continue with that? Maybe when we get more used to it, maybe there's going to be a new culture around it, and it's going to be something that we will celebrate. And there can be a day then when we are winning the regular season. We are on top of the table after the regular season, and then we will have to play against another team, whether it's Lyon or somebody else, Paris FC or whoever else. I don't know if the Lyon dynasty is going to last forever. Usually they don't. So the question is, what is the ambition level of this team come this summer and the transfer window? Well, we don't know. Will Nasser Al-Khelaifi open the purse? That also remains to be seen. Personally, I feel like the first thing to do, if it's not too close to the summer already, which it might be, that would be to change our sporting director. Angelo Castellazzi is a former right-hand man of Leonardo on the men's side, and his experience in women's football is, let's call it limited. His assistant in this women's team is our club legend and former captain Sabrina Delanoy. I have no issues with her, although, to be honest, what do I know how they work and what their division of labor there is? But I know that at least Delanoy has the best interest of this project at heart. She really cares and understands what this team needs and what it means to play there. Castellazzi doesn't have that track record, or indeed track record, of making great recruitments. You could make an argument that recent recruitments from the past couple of seasons, they have been really hit and miss. We've had some great players coming in. Players like Jackie Kroenen, Eva Gettino and Coben Albert, who are all really great. Kroenen, I would say, is a world class in my opinion, and the other two might easily get there. But there's also been some really bad recruitments. Players that essentially don't get playing time. Players you can't even let on the cross, that they don't have the level to play for this team on this level. There's been quite a few of those. More than you would imagine. There's been quite a few players who have essentially not played at all. That they are both and they just never play, or they play such an insignificant amount of football before sent on loan or sold or whatever, that it's something that you could not imagine ever happening in PSG men's team. That would be unheard of. It's really crazy. So I don't know who has been scouting them, who has pitched for them to come. Made an awful mistake. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It's really quite scandalous stuff that those recruitments that have been made that just lead to absolutely nowhere. Too many of them. So we do need a big leap upwards in professionalism of this project. And I would say that whether it's the fault of the sporting director, you kind of have to also accept that that's where the buck stops, so to speak. And what we do need, like I said before, and I say it again, we do need more interest and investment from the club itself. And now the positive thing about it also is that what they're talking about is that there should be a new sort of 5,000 people stadium in Poissy at the training center. So we will see how that's going to go, and I hope that's going to happen. That might create some kind of a professionalism and positive air around this club, and I certainly hope that it will happen. But at the same time, you know, there are some of these things that needs to be changed, maybe quicker than you can't just let the nature take its course, so to speak, because then nothing might happen or things might happen far too late. It's just going to take a lot of time. Currently, we have a good core of key players, great players. I would say we have maybe 5 players I could see in the Champions League winning starting lineup. Maybe 5. That's pretty good, right? Those are really great players. And then we have a few more that are of decent level. Possibly could be there, you know, with the right players around them. But we don't have 11 of them, let alone 20 plus, to have any kind of depth for this squad. That's the issue. Captain Cresciora and Sakina Karchuai are on long-term contracts now with the club. That's really great. That's really a great starting point. That's the kind of like a center of this project right now. And we also don't have to yet worry about Maria-Antoinette Katoto or Jackie Cronin, although they will enter their last years of their contract. That's kind of, usually the contracts in women's football are quite short. They are usually sort of like 2-3 years, no more than that. It's rare to see anything longer than that. So basically, when Sakina Karchuai signed a longer contract, it felt quite unusual. It was unusually long in this context. And then the summer will show to them, to Maria-Antoinette Katoto and Jackie Cronin, who are entering the last year of their contracts. This summer is going to show them, is it worth their career to continue in Paris? What is the ambition of the project? What is the ambition of the club? Is that matching with their own ambition for their personal careers? And that's basically for the team to show that this is a place to be. PSG has to be able to show them that this is a project worth their while. And that's also what I want to see, of course. Malawian forward Tabitha Chawinga is the best player of the season in Dijon. She has been on loan, and it's now very crucial to sign her to a proper contract. Very important. That info should have actually come on Friday. That's when it was promised to be, but then when the final was. But at the time of recording, we don't yet know. Hopefully she is soon a PSG player, and according to the reports, things are heading that way. There's been mention of possible 2-year contract, but you never know before things are finalized and even announced. There are some players that may or may not extend this summer. Sandy Baltimore has had a far improved season this season after a very forgettable 22-23 when she also lost her spot in the national team just before the World Cup last summer. It must have been quite a big thing in her career as well to not get there. She has been closer to her usual standard, maybe not quite there, but she has certainly been approaching that. And she may or may not extend with us. I wish she will, but if not, hopefully we can find a good replacement for her. She isn't at the moment on the highest echelon of our squad members, but then there are 2 players I would be happy to say thank you and goodbye. It might sound a bit harsh, but to me, this is the situation. Elisa de Almeida, she was selected to the best 11 of the league for this season. This is a French national team centre-back and sort of visible figure in our marketing and communication. She's technically a very good defender, very solid, good defender. I wouldn't say she's amazing, but I will say that she's a decent player. You know, I wouldn't have her in the best 11 of the season of Dijon, but she's a reasonably good player, and she has her strengths, but she also has got her weaknesses, and she doesn't seem to have the nerves for the big matches. She makes easy mistakes, even in smaller ones. You know, like somebody like Levin Kusava, he could do something absolutely amazing, and then 1 minute later an amateur error that loses us the whole match. A bit like that. She has a level of rotation player, in my opinion, at the moment, but I doubt that that is the extension she wants with us. So I would personally say goodbye and good luck, but it seems more likely that she will continue. And if she will, perhaps she will prove me wrong. I love nothing more than that. Perhaps she will find that consistency that she's been lacking, and that would be great. Another player that I would be ready to say goodbye to is another French national team player, the goalkeeper Constance Picaud. I'm sorry to say this, but it just doesn't have the level to be our starter, and we quite desperately need a starting level goalkeeper. The name Mary Earps of Manchester United and England national teams keeps on popping up. The rumor mills are always pointing this and that way. Of course, we're not the only club that is being connected to her, but we are one of them. Earps is a high-profile sports personality in her home country, England, and she would undoubtedly require a big salary, which is fine, but I really don't know if she would solve the issue for us. Because players like this, they are a little bit tricky. It's a bit like Lieke Martens, who had been, in her prime, the best player in the world of women's football. But then when she came to Paris, she has been sort of a rotational player coming from the bench, despite being undoubtedly one of the best paid in the whole squad. It's the type of signing that looks like you have high ambitions, but in actual fact, you've just spent a lot of money on someone who will share her time with us and her sponsors, which I don't even fault her or Martins or anybody. By the way, they must make their money because women's football is nowhere near as lucrative as the men's game. Financially, they are on a very different level. So I'm not holding any of this against them. It's a reality of the situation, but it can also end up being quite a distraction, unfortunately. I'm not a specialist on Mary Earps, far from it, but she isn't my preferred choice, to be honest with you. I would actually rather have Paris FC and Super Falcons, that's the Nigerian national team, keeper Chiamaka Nnadozie. I've been very impressed by her, and based on her social media activity, she could be happier on our side of Paris. Let's say she seemed quite impressed by Parc des Princes when we played them in their semi-final of this league playoffs, and she was very supportive of our team going into the final as well. Also, she had an absolutely ridiculous match against us. She will definitely get my vote. Very good keeper. PSG will also quite desperately need a starting level centre-back, right-back, and at least one forward, and we need depth. At the moment, any player can be injured and miss out an entire season. It happens a lot, even 2 seasons, as has been the case with our centre-back Polina Dudek. So depth is definitely needed, and we definitely don't have it. Ideally, we would offload a few players as well, like Lieke Martens. She could have better time in US or somewhere. I don't know, but it's not working out in Paris. It's a little bit like Lionel Messi. She also came from Barcelona as a huge name in the world of football. And like Messi, I'm happy to see her leaving our club, although I'm not that unhappy with her as such. As in, she gave sort of what she could, and she hasn't been treating us with disrespect. Things just haven't worked out for whatever reason. Like I said, one more match for PSG before the summer transfer madness truly starts, and focus, of course, will be divided by that and the Euros, Copa America and such, even the Olympics, which is, of course, aren't that huge deal in football, but this time they're in Paris, and we have at least 2 players who both have been selected to the Euros for the French national team. That's Warren Zaire-Emery and Bradley Barcola. They could also qualify for the Olympic team, and should PSG let them go there? That's a good question. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but at the same time, those are 2 starters for our team, and basically for them to miss a proper break this summer and a pre-season, to enter the team tired and without shared summer experience. I'm not sure that the club should give them that option. There are good arguments on both sides. To me, it's a moot point, but one that the club has to address eventually. Thank you for being with me. My name is Mikko. This is PSG Review, and yet another season is coming to its end. It's been a real pleasure to share the ride with you, and of course, it's not done yet. There's a major trophy to be lifted and won in the coming days. Check out the show on socials at PSG Review Pod on Twitter and at PSG Review on Instagram and TikTok. Share it with whoever could be interested in it. Rate and review if the spirit moves you. Thanks, and more next time on PSG Review. But until then, peace.